Fantasy and Some Flights, exploring the realms of beer, board games, books, and bourbon.
Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy and Some Flights podcast. I'm Nelson.
I'm Dalton. You're gonna have to mute. I just grunted when you started talking. I didn't have the Zoom up. I was actually looking at Audacity, where we record, to make sure my mic was working. And so you started talking, and then I was like, and I saw the little sound wave, and I was like, what was that? Oh, that was me.
Oh no!
Oh, that me.
Oh, that's. Okay, well, yeah, we're very professional here.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, so we are continuing on in our design cycle season stage. We should probably figure out how to market this. Yeah. Whatever you think is a cool name, that's what we're calling it.
Yeah, go ahead and send it to us because now that we're done, well, it would be great. It'd be great to go backdate it all.
Yeah, we'll back order them.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, our design series thing.
Our design series. There we go. Yep. And today we are talking with someone who's actually been on the podcast before, McKay, who goes by the Board Game Critic or the Board Critic on Instagram. And so he just had a successful Kickstarter of Snack Time, which is a roll and write. Mm-hmm. And so he's going to come on and kind of talk to us about the Kickstarter process. Jonathan McKenzie from Terradice a couple of weeks ago talked to us about pre-Kickstarter and all of that. We had Sherwin come on to talk to us about Steamforged games and designing in a team. And now we have someone who's completed a Kickstarter to talk about that, as well as he has started his own company to design board games. And so McKay is coming on, super awesome guy. And so I'm excited to talk to him about his journey.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had McKay on for, I think it was Expansions, maybe?
It was Expansions, yeah.
Yeah, Expansions episode a while ago. And we're also, we participate in the Board Ventures with him. So we've gotten to know him really well. We're excited to have him on and have a conversation about this and pick his brain a little bit more. This really great creative and design-based, mind that he has. We're excited to get into it. But can I say the thing?
You can say the thing.
Before we do that, Nelson, what's on your flight tonight?
Oh, I thought you were going to say what's on your flight as in you go first. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
it's fine. It's fine.
You go first.
So I am drinking I'm going back to the tried and true IPA. And I picked out the one that I found that had the most incredible name I have ever found. So this is from Great Lakes Brewing Company. And this beer is called the Great Lakes IPA. So super clever. Almost as good as we are at naming our segments.
That's right.
But this is it came out of a mix pack that I picked up at the grocery store that came with, I think you had brought it up actually a couple episodes ago. It was one of these take 5 or something like that, where there are 5 different beers and 3 of each. So instead of a 12 pack, it's a 15 pack.
Yep.
Which instantly drew me in. It's a fairly non-harsh IPA, I would say. It is a little bit on the hoppier side. It's not going to be super fruity or super citrusy, but it's not going to hit you in the face with hops.
Yep.
IBU's around 50. It's a little bit higher of an alcohol content than my last beer. It's at a 6.5. So we'll see how many I go through.
Yep.
But it is nice. I mean, I would say that this is the least imposing, least aggressive, least, I'm trying to think of the adjective, least unassuming, or the most unassuming IPA, right? It's just an IPA. That's what it is.
Checks the box.
It checks a box.
Can't even be bothered to name it.
Can't even be bothered to, exactly. And so it's very much okay. If you want an IPA, you're not going to be disappointed with this one. It's going to be something that I would not necessarily go find outside of a mix pack or anything like that. But being in a mix pack, I'm happy that it's there. I'm okay with it taking up 3 out of the 15 slots. But I'm going to give it a 2 cheers just because it's not exciting.
Yeah.
Right? It's not an exciting beer. It is, the tried and true. It's, the beige IPA, right?
Yeah.
It's that we're going to be happy about it. So the problem with that is that it does taste lower than its APV. So yeah, it could be dangerous at that point. So I am glad that they only included 3.
That's right. Yeah, you have to be careful with a 6-pack, I guess. But
yeah,
I feel as I have this conflicting thing where I'm starting to get into IPAs. It's something I've been trying to do for a long time. And so I feel like IPAs on the whole are getting milder. And I don't know if that's just like because I'm getting used to them. So it just
that's very true.
Feels that way. And this one does sound maybe a little bit more bland than normal. I'm not saying that IPAs by any means are generally bland, but it seems like there used to be this real trend of like, this is just going to punch you in the face, right? It's just going to absolutely knock you on your ass. And now like they don't quite do that as much. It feels like, I don't know. Is that your impression?
I think the ones that are being marketed and in the grocery stores, like we've seen a higher kind of variety of IPAs in grocery stores, and I feel like they want to stock the ones that are not going to be so aggressive to non-IPA drinkers.
That's a good point.
So if you go to a liquor store or something like that and search out an IPA, I don't think that those quote aggressive IPAs are gone. I just think that they're not in the Meijers, they're not in the Targets, they're not in the Walmarts, and they're kind of leaning more towards the easier to drink mixed pack variety. Great Lakes put this in a 15-pack for a reason, right? It's going to appeal to as many people as possible. That's going to try and get them to come back to try something else. Yeah. And so with that kind of in mind, I think that, yes, the theory is true. I also think it's more of we've expanded how many beers we have available to us, and therefore the kind of the mass market, supermarket type stores have kind of shifted into the less hoppy, the more mild.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
What about you? What's on your flight tonight?
So I had my birthday a couple weeks ago.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I'm in the last year of my 20s now. So that's the thing.
That is very sad.
You'll be there in just a, like, oh.
You should drink.
You'll be there soon too, buddy.
Yeah, I know.
You're heading that way.
Remind me.
But anyways, so one of the gifts that someone got me was sort of like the makings of a Sazerac cocktail.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So kind of like the authentic, quote unquote, authentic version or whatever. So like getting the right bitters, getting there's like a liqueur that's made with called like Herb Saint, which I tasted straight and tasted very weird, and it made my mouth numb. But it's like a very herby, very strong. It's like 50% liqueur.
Oh wow!
And then Sazerac whiskey, and then like a lemon peel. So it has like, and simple syrup. So it has or it actually says a sugar cube, but I made it with simple syrup instead.
Because you didn't go to the feed market.
Yeah, I went out back and checked, and the horse ate them all. So now I didn't.
I hate it when the horse does that.
Exactly. But also, like, you're making it mostly with Sazerac and this like Herb Saint stuff, both of which are like right around. I think Sazerac's like 45 or something percent, and 50%. So it's like this is not like a cocktail. This is like straight liquor.
Yeah.
And so the like water portion of the simple syrup actually really helped. So I just put like water in a cup or in a glass, like a rocks glass, and then like sugar and like mix it until it dissolves, and then make the cocktail on top of that. But it's really good. I've been really enjoying them. It is like strong. It's spirited for sure, and it still tastes like whiskey-y. Sazerac is a rye whiskey, and so it has like that very strong, like oaky and like just whiskey flavors. But the Herb Saint has, like I said, it is also like a very distinct flavor profile that is like herby. And then both the bitters and the lemon peel make it sort of like that bright lemony citrus flavor. So we haven't had a lot of cocktails on here. I just thought it would be fun to like bring one on, and specifically since it was gotten for me, I thought it'd be kind of fun to share. So if I'm feeling like something that's not quite like whiskey, but I, want to have a whiskey taste, this is like a little softer and nicer, and again citrusy, and it has a little bit of the sugar, so it's definitely in like the realm of like an old fashioned, but just tilted maybe more towards like where old fashioned has like orange, which is maybe a softer citrus flavor. This has like lemon, which is a pretty sharp citrus flavor, plus that like herbiness.
Would you describe it as refreshing or not?
Yeah
right, like I think of like a lemon beer as kind of refreshing, right? But I don't think I've ever had a mixed drink with whiskey and lemon, so I didn't know if that kind of provided the same effect.
I think you maybe could. The only thing is that it is still like very spirited. It's very strong. But I could see myself like if I was outside and I specifically wanted a whiskey based mixed drink, that this would probably. It's a better option certainly than like a Manhattan, which is like pretty dark and syrupy.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, that brightness for sure makes it kind of refreshing.
Okay. Well, that sounds good.
So.
I have not really dabbled, I think, at all in whiskey-based or like mixed drinks, cocktails. I think really everything that I've ever done has been in the vodka, gin, rum kind of realm, and I've never really mixed whiskey with anything. So I may have to look into doing that.
Yeah,
because I enjoy whiskey. I enjoy mixed drinks.
Right.
Ergo, A equals B.
QED. Yeah, it's like, it's hard because whiskey's expensive, right? And so like you can have a vodka-based mixed drink and you're like, this vodka cost me 30 cents, to put into this drink. And whiskey's more expensive, and so...
But you do feel more sophisticated.
You do. You feel fancy AF. So you got that going for you.
It's true.
But yeah, 3 cheers. I've been having a lot of these, so I would be happy at this point to order it at a bar.
Yeah, I can tell you're starting to slur.
Yeah. This is an official New Orleans cocktail. So,
yeah, there you go.
You can
Perfect.
take that how you will. But yeah, I've enjoyed them.
Awesome. Well, that's really exciting to hear. I will have to try it at some point. But without further ado, we are going to record McKay's portion at a different time, just like we have the last couple. So we're going to go ahead and splice in the audio right now. So we have McKay Anderson, the board critic, who is the Backfire resident gameplay and mechanics designer, who has just finished up a successful Kickstarter, Snack Time, on the podcast with us today. How are you doing, McKay?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while.
Yeah, you've been on. We talked about expansions, and now we get to talk about the game that you designed and you are bringing into this world. Yeah. So that's really exciting.
Do you have any expansions lined up for it yet?
How many times have you been asked that?
Right. It comes with one mini expansion, which was kind of in the back of my head the whole time. We didn't decide to make it an actual stretch goal until the later stages of the campaign, where I was like, you know what, we needed stretch goals because it went better
good
than
problems
I thought
to have.
it would. And so
that's a good problem. Yeah,
it is. And so I was like, okay, what can we do? And I was like, I've been playing around with this idea for a while, so we did throw in a little mini expansion. But to answer the question, really, it's more we have things planned for the world that it exists in. But not necessarily for the game itself. It's a pretty simple game, and I don't want to overcomplicate the simple nature of it. But we loved working with our illustrator and stuff so much that we're like, we'd love to just do more with this art style and kind of flesh out the world that we created.
So if I understand you correctly, you're creating a series of games that are within the same world. They're using the same characters. Am I allowed to ask about the future games? Or
I mean, you can ask. It's very much, it's a nebulous kind of idea for us right now. So Snack Time itself is a roll and write, which sits pretty squarely in the medium weight game category, where we could probably go a little heavier and do kind of a worker placement, something or other. We could probably go a little bit lighter and do a family card game. The art style that we struck kind of hits a broad range of audiences as far as age grade and interest goes. And so that's where we're like, man, it's a shame to not show more of this art and kind of tell more of this story. So we literally have little to no idea of what it would be, but we just really like the characters and stuff.
Yeah, the art and the theme really drew me into this game. I mean, I don't want to brag, but I also know the designer. But but I mean, it's such a super unique and fun art style. And so can you talk to me a little bit about that? How did that come about? Was that your vision? Did you work with the illustrator, the artist, to kind of build that? Or talk to me a little bit about that.
So it actually came about really authentically, if you will. So I follow a lot of artists on Instagram. I think I have 5 Instagram accounts. One of those is my art as well as artists that I follow.
Okay.
And so I follow a lot of them. I had seen his artwork for a while, probably a year and a half. And I reached out to him and I just said, I love your art. Would you be interested at any point in time, doing some kind of board game with your art? And his name is Bodie Hartley. He goes by Slow Quest on Instagram and stuff. So I can get you links and stuff to his work. But he's like, yeah, I've played around with games before. I do Dungeons and Dragons, characters and weapons and stuff like that. That's 5e compatible. And he was like, I would love that. And so then I kind of set about designing a game to actually fit his artwork. So that's typically not how we work. Usually it's we create the game, the story, all of that, then try and find an artist to match. But this one, it just all came together. I started looking at his artwork and I was like, I just feel like there's a good game here where creatures are just like eating people. And I have a dark sense of humor. If you know anything about me, it's that my humor is off color in kind of the macabre and gruesome category. And so, yeah, the game was actually designed around his artwork rather than his artwork advising the instead of his artwork being advised like through us or kind of filtered through us. We gave him almost full creative control and just said, we want to showcase your art in the best possible way. And so we were really happy that people identified with it.
I mean, it is so engaging, right? I think we play tested it at PAX and we had people come by and like, what is that? Like, it's really one of those that has a table presence, which I think a lot of roll and writes kind of miss.
Yeah.
And so it's nice. It's kind of unique in that sense.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So you said this is not how we typically interact. Or you typically work. So I think on BGG, you have 2 games now credited to your name. You have Snack Time and Black Rabbit Dice. Is that right?
Yeah.
So when you say this is not typically how we act, are you referring to Black Rabbit Dice? Or are you referring to other projects that have not come to fruition yet?
Yeah, so I'm talking about the other ones that are working. Black Rabbit Dice can be forgotten. I'm proud of Black Rabbit Dice and for what it is. But I purchased like an icon pack off of the internet to do that one, and I was just like, you know what, I just need something quick and dirty. That project, I mean, we could probably talk about that one as an entirely separate episode. It was a journey. But no, I'm talking about since we've established Backfire Games, me and my business partner and how we prefer to work is usually game idea, find the artists, and go forward from there.
Gotcha. Very cool. So Snack Time, let's talk a little bit about Snack Time, right? Because I want to promote the game a little bit and get people. I don't know how they would not have heard of it yet because, but let's. You said it's a roll and write. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the mechanics and how you play the game?
Absolutely. So Snack Time is a roll and write at its core. What it is, it's a path building game. You have kind of like you would have like a revolving market of cards, but we wanted to have basically a street kind of set in like a grimy London downtown that's kind of period ambiguous. And you have people that every turn they take a step further down the street. Or you could call them blocks, however you want, but they move further down the street. And based on their location, you're trying to feed your monsters underneath the city. And you've created these little test tube creations that while they grow, they kind of develop different traits. Like some have more eyes than others, some have tentacles or teeth. And in order for them to successfully take a bite out of one of these pedestrians that are walking along the street, you kind of need, it's a little bit of like a timing game where you kind of line up the monster with the right trait, ending up at the right sewer entrance to take, a leg or an arm off of that pedestrian as it passes by. So the mechanics are pretty clear. You roll all the dice, you add traits to your monsters, you add pipes to your sewer to try and connect them to the sewer entrances in time to take a bite out of the tastiest evil. And when I say my humor borders on the macabre and dark, it's when I started this, I was like, all right, there are 2 types of people. You have your homeless that are easy to snack on, but they're not very nutritious. Or you have like your fat, plump, juicy snacks. And that's where we got the name Snack Time. It was like, it's just, you're taking little bites out of these people, and some are just higher quality people than others.
I'm a goddamn snack. And it's like, yes, you are.
Oh man, yeah. That is hilarious. I love that. So it kickstarted. It was a very successful Kickstarter, over 700% funded. It funded in about 24 hours, I think.
I think I was right at 24 hours.
I mean, that's awesome. Congratulations. So pretend like you didn't know how it was going to do and that it was going to be so successful. Take me back to right when you hit publish. How did that feel?
There are a few things that were as nerve-wracking in my life than that moment. And it was not that we had like a ton sunk into this. Like me and my business partner, we kind of split the cost of development, which I won't tell you prices just because I don't
Yeah.
want you judging our artist's work based off of what we
Yeah.
paid him.
Yeah.
And I want you to value his art for exactly what it is, which is amazing. And so because we were splitting the cost between us, it was something that we were totally okay if it didn't fund. We're like, this has been enjoyable. We've met a great artist. We've developed a game that we enjoy. So while the stakes were actually very low, I know a lot of companies that probably have sunk like, tens of thousands of dollars into the development of a game and before they push play on Kickstarter. That was not our case.
Wow.
But it being our first companies, it was just kind of like you could say like an ego thing, that I was worried about the emotional blow that I would take if it just tanked completely.
Right. Yeah.
So very, very nerve-wracking. I think the 2 days leading up to it, I barely slept at all, just up at night, like nightmares, and just thinking through things, making last-minute changes and tweaks to all of it. And yeah, and I got up that morning, I was like, I have to set like an hour, I have to set like a day of the week. And a lot of advice online says not to do that. They're like, if it's ready when it's ready, don't rush it. And I was like, no, like I'll freak out and like panic publish it at some point if I don't set like a clear time. So I said 10 o'clock on Tuesday, I'm just doing it. It's just going to happen. And so, yeah, and I think that was a wise thing for me. And I don't know if that's going to happen with every Kickstarter that we do. I pray it doesn't, but I kind of...
You don't think you're going to get used to it over time?
No, I don't think
So
so.
if I could ask a bit of a financial question then. So, when you talk about those tens of thousands that go into development for a bigger company, for someone like yourself on a more indie sort of platform, what is sort of contributing to sunk cost? Like what's kind of building into that before you hit publish?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, I mean, at this point in my life, my time and my energy is free because I have a full-time job. We are like an indie studio that's developing this like at nights and weekends. So I don't factor my time and energy into that because I genuinely love it, and it's not supporting my family currently. So beyond that, it's really, we had done a handful of prototypes, which we tried to do very cost effective. We had local places, I have a laser engraver and a 3D printer that we had done pieces through that as well. So, as far as we had a handful of prototypes, which you're in the hundreds of dollars range. We had prepared for a couple local conventions that we had gone to, a couple hundreds again. The biggest cost was art. And then, advertising is one thing that with this one, we didn't do a lot of, but I think in the future and going forward, I think we're going to find that that's one of the bigger expenses to pay for actual ad space on BGG or a couple mailing lists or blogs or whatever to try and get review copies to people, as well as just some of that leading up exposure, I imagine is going to be the biggest cost increment. But for us at this point in our company's development, it was definitely largely artwork.
Yeah, that's helpful. I appreciate you sharing that, because again, just thinking about the audience, for us, I think the interest comes from people who think like, well, maybe I want to do this myself, right? And so just kind of starting to paint a little bit of a picture around like, hey, here's what this might entail for you if someone pursued a similar path. That's where I come from in asking that question. So it's helpful to hear.
Yeah. And I would say like the thing that caught us the most by surprise, I would say, is you have the artwork for the game, but you probably have that plus a third is probably going to go to Kickstarter. We had the luck of both me and my business partner are artists. And so we were able to do a lot of the things for the actual Kickstarter campaign when it comes to like headers and borders, like support imagery, GIFs of like how the game is played and all of that, we were able to generate ourselves. And so that's why I say a lot of what we did, I count as free when normally it would not be. And that just comes from our skill sets as artists and programmer type people.
Yeah, Nelson and I would be screwed. Yeah. We'd be up the creek.
Yeah. We would call you.
Please do.
For sure.
So like Dalton was saying, we have listeners that are interested in designing games and have been listening to this series to, get kind of a different perspective. We have people who just enjoy kind of hearing about it. But I'm kind of curious. You said all of these like banners and designs and everything that go into the Kickstarter. Like, what are some of the maintenance items that are behind the scenes that people need to be aware of if they want to pursue starting a Kickstarter themselves?
Kickstarter itself it's a complete system, like an ecosystem, if you will, that is kind of hard to wrap your head around. Some of the things we definitely learned a lot about. We're still learning things about this, which seems to be the prevailing method of getting a board game to market, is through a Kickstarter or a Game Found. And honestly, at the end of the day, they're marketing platforms. You are paying Kickstarter or Game Found a portion of what you generate and assume that it's marketing. And that's one thing, is you have to understand that Kickstarter, it's marketing, but it's also kind of a social media platform. As people hear about you, they purchase a game from you, or they back something of yours, you create a following. And if I'm sure a lot of you have backed things on Kickstarter, you'll probably get spam messages constantly. It's like, hey, this person that you backed something through like 5 years ago, they did another thing. Yep. And it's like, even if it's not even related to board games or what you backed previously, it's just like, hey, this person, it did another thing. And that is the reason we chose Kickstarter. I don't know if GameFound does that because I haven't backed enough through GameFound, but Kickstarter's really good at spamming people. And honestly, it works.
I would be lying if I said I haven't bought something off one of those spam emails.
Oh yeah. And they can show you, like, when you push publish and you see like where stuff starts rolling in, we have a good it gives it in percent, so it's like thousands of percent because of like what our goal was and stuff, but a huge percent of it is through Kickstarter pushing emails to people. Wow. And they demonstrate that.
Oh, wow.
So that is one huge thing, is preparing for your Kickstarter's launch is gathering a following. Jamie Stegmaier has a whole blog post about daily things to do to grow your following. And this is an example of one of those things, is like be active in the community, just being vocal and present and growing your tribe that way. Kickstarter has like the pre-publish pages that go up. Oh, that's a nice alliteration. They kind of, you can follow the project before it even goes live, and things like that. There are also marketing companies out there that won't support your project unless you can show that you have at least 1,000 people waiting for your project to launch. Wow. And that's like their metric of, this is going to be successful because we can see that you have at least 1,000 people on either a mailing list or already following your project, that we can see that we can support your product now because you've proven a following. So that's all a huge part of how you should view Kickstarter. It starts getting depressing if you look at like the cut that they take and all of those kinds of things. But honestly, it's marketing dollars, and it's honestly well spent at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. So what challenges did you have while running the Kickstarter? Maybe like unforeseen things that popped up. Like you kind of talked about the fees. I don't necessarily mean that, but like questions from backers or things that you weren't not actually expecting. What popped up?
So both a good and a bad. So when you say challenges, it is a double-sided coin, but you have people on Kickstarter are extremely invested. You have a lot of people who just, they back it. It looks interesting. They're kind of a little bit philanthropic in the sense that they just want to see something like come to life, and they get excited about that. But then you also have a huge group of people who they demand updates. If you haven't done like a monthly update, then they're spamming you on the project page. Just like, hey, we haven't heard anything in a while. Like, did we lose our money on this? Are you still like going to deliver and stuff? And it's just like, yes, we were silent for 1 month. Like,
I was on vacation. Come on. Like,
exactly. So that's always surprising to me. And I always forget until somebody is like, hey, what's up? Why haven't we heard from you? And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. I forgot the monthly update.
These are your investors speaking to you direct.
Exactly. And so it is a good thing that people are that invested. And the reason I say that is we didn't have the rule book completely set up when we pushed launch. We had the rules, but we couldn't provide like, hey, here's a beautiful like laid out rule book because
Right.
we're new and we're working through that. And so when I developed like the first draft of the rule book, I just sent out a message and said like, hey, we have a first draft. If anybody feels confident in proofreading or editing in English, we can send you a first draft and have you look over that. We had a good like 20 something people that were like,
wow.
hey, I'm an English major. Like, hey, I majored in creative writing, and tons of people that didn't ask for anything
Wow.
in return. They were just like, we'd love to take a look at the initial rule book. And it was hugely helpful. My background, I consider myself a decent writer and speaker of English, but it was amazing. Some of the things that they pulled out, some of the things that they pointed out as kind of like verbally ambiguous in the rule book. I was like, you know what? You're right. That is really confusing. And I don't know how I didn't see that.
You can only look at the
Right,
same
yeah.
passage of text like so many times before you just like
Yeah.
glaze
Right.
over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I said, it's a two-sided coin. It is a challenge to keep everybody happy, keep up with the constant needs for like address changes or nitpicky questions about the rules that it's like, okay, really? I don't get that nitpicky until I've like played a game like 5 times and then I'm like, oh, you know what? There's this question that I have. So impressive.
Putting out FAQs
Like,
before
yeah.
the rule book.
Yeah.
Yeah, no joke. But yeah, so a very good thing, but also a challenge to deal with. I mean, when you get upwards of like 2,000-3,000 people who all have like questions, it's management.
Yeah, that's a
which
lot
can
of
be hard.
time.
It
That's
is.
a lot of time. Did you have like a biggest change or something that you went through that you had to edit very heavily after you hit publish?
So we actually did have a big change. I don't know how it slipped through in our initial like preparations, but I think we had just created a lot of the imagery, a lot of like the how to play videos and stuff. And we realized after like, because we were play testing while the campaign was going, especially after we knew that it was funded, we were like, all right, let's just like really hammer out any issues.
Yeah.
And we found that, so we had advertised as 7 custom dice, and we realized that we only needed 5 of those. We were like, there are 2 dice that in an earlier version of the game were necessary, but as we started like stripping out unnecessary fat from the game and the rules, we're like, there are 2 dice in here that are completely superfluous, like completely. But it was part of the structure of the game. We were charging people for a game with 7 custom dice, and I was like, my business part was like, I mean, we can just like change that, right? And I was like, no, people get crazy about the dice. Like, you cannot. And the dice are the biggest cost in this game. Like,
Yeah.
they're custom, they're 18 millimeter, they're big, chunky, like they're a custom resin color with custom ink. Like we put a lot into these dice, and they are the primary cost driver. And I was like, it just looks really underhanded to say, this is the product, we're charging this much for this offering, and then cut out like that's a big percentage when you think 2 out of 7. So I actually restructured a lot of the game to make those 2 extra dice as a module in the game that you can optionally include to change them. So it's called the Rat Snacks module. And basically, if you want to play with those extra 2 dice, you roll them. It'll give you a location on the map to introduce a rat into the sewer, and you get extra points for connecting your pipe network through these rat spaces on your way to the sewer entrances to snack on your real people. And it works so much better. It improved the game by so much, and we're very happy that it happened. But yeah, it was mid-campaign that I was like, oh no, what are we gonna do? Do we just include dice that are completely unnecessary in there? And so it all worked out in the end. But yeah, that was the biggest pivot that we had to make. And we were really trying to be completely transparent with all of our backers, and we introduced the proposal, what we wanted to do, what the problem was, and I think we got a really positive feedback from everybody. So
That's good.
So was that like a survey that you sent out, or I don't remember seeing that, but honestly, like a lot of the Kickstarter like updates, I just kind of don't
Right.
read.
Yeah,
There's
and
a
I
lot
think
of them.
it-
I've backed way too many Kickstarters. There's way too many emails.
Yeah, I think it was in one of those updates. They were like, "Oh, hey, and here's this weird thing that happened." And yeah, everybody got really excited about the idea of rat snacks. It also helps with it. It rhymed and had nice alliteration and stuff like that. So yeah, it was just an update that we sent out and we said, okay, here's the problem. Here's our plan. We want to know what you think. And yeah, everybody was pretty happy about it.
Yeah, I'm glad the community kind of
awesome.
like
Yeah.
honored your intention there, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's an honest mistake. It's a pretty, in retrospect, a little bit of a funny one. But
Yeah.
it ended up felt that way at the time.
Okay, so how long did your Kickstarter run for?
Sorry, I laugh because that was probably the other mistake I should have pointed out. You can run it from anywhere from, I don't know what the lowest amount is, but you can run it up to 60 days.
Okay.
We did 60, and that was a huge mistake. Well,
Why?
sorry, I can't really consider it a mistake because it all worked out just fine.
Yeah.
And who knows how it would have worked out.
I feel like it would
otherwise.
just naturally hit the max and just say,
Yeah,
like, sure.
and I mean, Kickstarter has warnings. They're like the most successful projects run from 20 to 30 days. And in my mind, I was like, listen, having it open for longer doesn't necessarily hurt because it's just at that point, it's pre-orders. Like you're just opening up the platform for people to pre-order the product. The mistake or why I would not do that again is one, I didn't anticipate the mental stamina that it would take.
Yeah.
Having 2 months worth of a project like running, it was exhausting, and you just have to keep up that energy and momentum. The project will hit a spike at the beginning. It'll kind of level off with like usually fairly steady growth, and then it hits a spike at the end.
Okay.
The reason why I think 60 days was a mistake is because you can't really move forward confidently with like manufacturing costs and all of that, like starting to crunch actual numbers and kick off actual, like the nuts and bolts of it until you have concrete numbers. Just because that affects the pricing, it affects like what factories can handle your project and all of that. So it was difficult to just sit for 2 months wanting to start putting these plans into action and not being able to, but at the same time, you have to keep up your energy and your enthusiasm and your motivation for the actual Kickstarter campaign and keeping people like engaged throughout that process. So it's really a matter of cadence when you kick off your Kickstarter, and then that's why stretch goals are actually a very cool thing. People get excited to see them unlocked one by one. It keeps their energy up throughout the campaign so that it doesn't lose its shininess before like the end, so they don't like drop out or pull their back. And so really overall, I can't really call it a mistake, but I won't do it again.
It's a lesson learned.
Yeah. And the reason I laughed was because I set it to 60, and then it was something I totally was intending to drop down to 30 before I hit go, and I didn't. I forgot to. No. And so it was the one thing, and it's one of the only things that you cannot change. You can't change your pledge tiers because obviously, but you also can't change the duration of it, which I think is personally a little bit silly. I think like, why can't you change it to within like, I mean, even 5 or 10 days. Like, I get that you can't just end it like that.
Right.
But why can't you shorten it up and still give people 5 days? Like,
right.
Anyway, I thought it was silly. It was a pure mistake, although I'm not a fan of saying like it wasn't meant to be, because maybe there was a good reason for it.
Yeah. So you would go like the 30 route in the future?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And also just coming from like the social media side and view of it, it's hard to hype up a game for 60 days, for 2 months.
Yeah.
Like the board game industry changes fairly quickly with kind of what is the hotness and what people are talking about. And it's got to be something really big to go for 2 months. Yeah. And so, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That I would just never thought. I would have sat there and done the exact same as you. 60
can only be better.
More days, more money, right?
Time is money.
It can't be worse. So that's interesting. So you talked about working with the manufacturers and needing to wait until the final Kickstarter had wrapped up and everything, and that was hard after the 2 months. So after the Kickstarter ended, what are the nuts and bolts kind of going into getting it published? Like if I ran a Kickstarter, I would have no idea what to do next. Like I'm making them in my garage if I do it right now. So I think that's not what you're doing. So like what does that process look like?
So we had found a couple of factories before starting the Kickstarter, and that was just for kind of the fact finding of figuring out how much the game would cost to make, running the numbers, seeing what we could offer it at. And we had a couple factories lined up, and we chose one, and we ran the numbers off of this specific one because he was really easy to get in touch with. He, I believe, is from Austria, but he works for a Chinese company. So it was really easy to talk to him. And he was just really clear. He clearly had like a really good grasp on board games, the things that are offered. And it's a smaller company. So it's Hero Time Manufacturing is the manufacturer that we went with. They're smaller. And what that offered was he was willing to just like get creative with us. If we had something that was just a little bit harebrained and we're like, okay, we know it's not typical, but we want to try this. He was really good to work with us. So those all went into some of the decisions that we made there. They also offered a 500 minimum order quantity or MOQ. And we weren't sure how many we'd be ordering. We ended up ordering 3,000. So it really wasn't a concern.
There you go.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. We were like, okay, but we do want this, like, we know it might be kind of this like process of getting the ball rolling. So we're like, if we need to go as low as 500 MOQ, let's start it there. Let's price it so that it can be successful at 500 copies. And so that was the biggest hurdle. But it is amazing the amount of work, especially today in today's market with shipping prices being outrageous.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody can predict shipping like a month from now. It could double in cost in that amount of time. And so trying to figure out how to do shipping, which is why a lot of Kickstarters now are like shipping will be charged after the campaign. It's a super risky thing for a backer to do because it's like, I don't know how much it's going to be. So
shipping could be more than the game.
Exactly. And a lot of people did ask to cancel their pledge because they were like, I can't pay like double the cost of the game just to get it to somewhere like, I don't know, Croatia or whatever. Yeah. And we were like, that's completely fine. We totally understand, which, spoiler alert, that's why we've designed another project that we're hoping will launch in just a couple months that fixes shipping issues. So we can talk about that a little bit later. And so a lot of that was just tricky in the sense of there are so many unknowns, and a lot of this industry is just like, we have to move forward on a little bit of a wing and a prayer and hope that it all turns out to the best of our calculations. You obviously have to work in a little bit of padding that it's like, okay, if things were to go bad, we could still pull it off. And we're really hoping. We just actually today got the invoice so that we can wire the full amount to our manufacturer in order to start like push go on the manufacturing of the games. So I'm going to dig into that tomorrow and probably do that wire transfer. But
sweet.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't think I've ever spent that much money on anything at one time in my life, but it's not really my money, right?
Yeah.
It's, right. Yeah.
But I'm sure it feels like it
kind
is.
of nice.
It feels like you're writing the check.
You see that invoice. Yeah. So that's part of it. There's also things that you just wouldn't expect, like the factory coming back and saying like, you know what? You designed your rule book with these fonts. We need to verify that you have the rights to use those fonts. So we have to go about like proving that. And we do, and it's fine. But you also have like, okay, if it's going to be distributed in the UK or EU, you have these like variety of tests that you have to go to for it to sit on a store shelf. They literally can't put your game on their shelf unless you have certain certifications and tests being done on the inks and dyes and types of plastic, choking hazards, all of that crap that I'm just like, and God bless our manufacturers because they've been awesome in talking through a lot of that with us as well. They've been really helpful in just like, okay, here are some things that you need to consider. And I don't know if all manufacturers are that helpful in providing some guidance, as far as we didn't know that you have to have an address on the box for it to be distributed and pass a lot of these certifications. And so I was like, I don't really want to put my home address, but we don't have a business address right now.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, so we're opening up a PO box at our post office so that we can put an address on there that doesn't point people to our front doors.
Start getting hate mail.
Anyway, so I know, which would be kind of funny, but I think once you start getting hate mail, you know you've made it.
That's probably
life,
true.
right?
It's a bit of a bucket list.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's hard to point to any one thing because there are so many just like things that you wouldn't expect, and I expect that to happen now for any future project, no matter what we're doing. We haven't done something with wooden meeples in it, and I assume there's a whole slew of issues that come with how you design those.
Is this ethically sourced
regulations
wood?
Of exactly ethically sourced, all of that kind of stuff that, man, it's part of the joy of the game. I'm game pun not intended, but you do have to, if you're going to do this, I think you have to appreciate that as part of the journey and just enjoy that learning process of every other day a new email comes in and it's just like, oh, I didn't think about that. And you just have to figure it out. And so everybody cut some slack for those Kickstarters that are years behind. Things happen, and it's something that everybody's learning. And I've loved the board game community for just like that general support that people most of the time are just like, yeah, I mean, we're here, we've got your back, and we just want to see cool things happen.
And that's really cool. And it sounds like there are just so many of those little things that you never really expected. And so was that just kind of a learn on the fly? Did you have resources that you can point people to help them learn and understand some of the hurdles that they're going to be encountering on their journey?
So I would say the most thorough body of work that outlines Kickstarter, things that you should think about, and clear advice on how to do those things is Jamie Stegmaier has a book on kickstarting things. Great advice, and he gives links. I mean, he provides tables of what it costs to manufacture all the pieces of most of his games.
Oh wow,
he's extremely transparent. If you haven't spent time on his blog, it's amazing. Like probably the best body of just like clear reference material that you can get. As a point of professional interest, me and my business partner have committed to reading an article from Jamie's blog daily just to try it. I mean, there's so much information there, but that's really the only resource that I can point to. The majority of it has been like just to learn on the fly. Like if you had asked me before where I can register a barcode and the different types of barcode libraries that I need to sort through and all of that, like, I mean, we're also working with a trademark lawyer to try and get our logo protected so that somebody can't just rip off our game. I mean, people can always rip off a game, but just so that they would at least have to scrub our logo from their cheap knockoff of our game.
Right.
Again, bucket list though.
So yeah.
You've made
it. You've made it.
I now have a trademark.
Exactly.
So really interesting things that I would say, if I've learned anything from just being a professional in most of my jobs, it's like, grown-ups are just kind of like kids still trying to figure out the best way to do things.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, right? Daily, it's like somebody comes into your office and they're like, hey, I need you to get this done. It's like, I will figure that one out.
Let me look into that for you. I'll get back to you.
So don't feel like you're an imposter. I mean, imposter syndrome is a real thing, especially if you're going to start designing board games. Don't kid yourself and think that anybody's really qualified to do it. It's if you have passion and you have like the willingness to learn and deal with issues as they come up and stuff, and I think you'll know if you're the person that can do that. Just take it with a grain of salt, smile your way through all the unexpected twists and turns.
Yeah. Excellent. So if people wanted to kind of follow Backfire or your journey with new things coming out or snack time and the updates there, what is the best place to get involved with that specifically? And then we'll go into how people can find you.
Yeah, so the main place that we've decided to carry most of our updates and stuff, there's obviously our website. Updating the website can be cumbersome and long, so you can check back on the website regularly, but we do recommend Discord. If you want to join our Discord, I can provide a link. There should also be a link somewhere on our website if you want to join the Discord. It is the most up-to-date area of information. It's where we actually perform all of our business meetings for development and stuff like that. So a lot of times we go straight from our development meeting to updating the people on our Discord. We have open play testing of all of our games in development, print and play options, as well as if you're interested in getting a physical copy of a prototype when we get things on Tabletop Simulator. If you want to be involved in kind of that design process, as a company, we're pretty much an open book. And so like I said, I can provide the Discord link that can be in the show notes. Also our website, I'll make sure it's somewhere on there probably right after this. But yeah, that's definitely the best place. And that's where you'll be closest to the information coming out of Backfire Games.
Great. Yeah. And before we close, I want to circle back to something that you had mentioned about solving the world shipping crisis. So can you talk to me about that?
So this is something that all of this information is on Discord if you want to join Discord. So it is public information, but our next game is going to be a print and play only. One thing that was devastating during this Kickstarter was to realize there were a lot of people who were interested in the game, interested in getting new games, and we realized there's a large portion of the world that just doesn't have the access to cost-effective shipping and things like that coming out of America or Germany, which are probably the two biggest board game creation hubs, right? And a lot of people were like, hey, we'd love to play this, but we just can't. Like, the shipping is just prohibitive. And that was gut-wrenching to see that people wanted good gaming experiences but couldn't pay for a Gloomhaven sized box to be shipped to them. And so we were like, you know what, as a company, we want to throw the community a bone and just like, let's design a robust game that has like depth and intricacy and some, not like a wimpy print and play that's just like, hey, yeah, here's something that you can do. But so what we've developed is, it's called the Wards of Stonefall. And we call it kind of the Gloomhaven of roll and writes. It's a 5-chapter campaign. Each chapter has 3 different maps that you print off, and it's all roll and write based, but it's hopefully a very engaging 5-chapter story that over the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to be releasing chapter at a time. It's going to be $5, will be delivered directly after the campaign ends. It's deliverable in a PDF, but has like soundtracks and like robust artwork. And it's we're so excited about it because it was just really hard to be like, yeah, sorry, you just can't play our game if you're not willing to pay. I mean, to some of these places, it would have been $60-something to get a simple roll and write to their door. And so that's our next project that we're very excited about. And the funding goal is literally going to be somewhere around $50 to $100 because there's no cost associated with it. Like, all you need is about 5 D6s, which shouldn't be a problem if you're interested in games on Kickstarter.
You've gotten to that level.
And then access to a yeah, exactly. You know, you've made it when you have 5 D6s around your house. No, so that's kind of where we are with, like, we're very excited to just start building this. And it's kind of this ongoing story that's going to take place over several chapters, and will hopefully be a good way to get people games that otherwise just wouldn't be able to play the newest games.
Yeah, that's incredible, just allowing that accessibility to those people who don't normally have it. I think that's a very great thing to do.
Yeah, it's a really cool vision.
Am I allowed to say that I've played?
Yes, actually.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a lot of fun. So, it's very brain burny.
Fun fact: Nelson kind of broke it, which was so cool. And it's changed a lot since then, actually. So I, like I said, you can download the full version, just not like with all the polished artwork and everything that I mentioned, but I have the full playtest pack. If you want to join our Discord, join our playtester specific group, and just request it. I can give you a zip file with the entire PDF, printable files, and all of that you can playtest. So come join us. We're very interested in getting feedback on how it works, and hopefully, I mean, Nelson, I should have you download it and try and break it again, because
I'd love to. Yeah.
After he played it, I was like, I've never seen this happen before. Like, it wasn't even challenging for him. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
It was a lot of fun. It is very brain burning. It's it's really cool. Like, and we only played the first scenario.
Yeah.
And then you kind of told us about the next scenarios and just like how that changes. And I'm really excited. I'm definitely going to be one of the backers. I'll probably get you to that 50.
Cool. Thanks.
So before we log off, tell people where to find you. You're a part of so many different things in this community. And so where can people find you? We'll throw links in the description, but
yeah, so I am all over the place, and hopefully one of these will give you an avenue to get in touch with me, because really interacting with people in the board game community has been one of the greatest joys of the last couple years since I've been doing this. I'm on Instagram as the Board Critic. The Board Game Critic is the full name. I think it shows up first if you should search either of those. That's where I just post my random reviews, things that I'm thinking about board games. You can also follow us on Backfire Games on Instagram. We're not super active there. It's just kind of when we do like bigger things that we'll post there, but we do polls for our current games a lot. So like we just changed the ink color of our dice and for snack time, and we put a poll up on there, and so that's where we'll take polls and get kind of like community engagement as far as direct feedback goes. Discord is definitely the best place if you want to chat with us directly, get like information as it's coming out. We update Discord first. And so Backfire Games, the Board Game Critic. If you want to follow, the reason Nelson and I really know each other is Board Vengers, primarily on YouTube. That's kind of my YouTube outlet, if you prefer YouTube as a platform. We're both on there as the Board Vengers, and it's been really, really fun. You'll get to know a lot of great people through that. And I think that's all of them.
No, it's not. I'm not going to let you get off.
Oh no,
here
what did I
talk about the Better Board Games podcast?
Oh,
Come on.
That's right. So that's just fun. If you know Evan Dick from Being Friends, he has a YouTube channel as well as an Instagram. We do have a podcast, and the reason I forget it is just because it just feels like fun to me every once in a while. Me and Evan met each other on Instagram, and the first time we talked was our first episode of our podcast. And so
no kidding, that's fun.
Yeah, you literally, by listening to our podcast, we'll text back every now and then with like podcast ideas and stuff, but you can pretty much follow our entire friendship on our podcast. So if that sounds interesting to you, what we do on the Better Board Games podcast is we try and blend a little bit of like morality and social change with the board game space. It's a little bit, I call it like the self-help of board games. We talk about how board games change our lives, make us better, how to be better people in our board gaming adventures, and just how to be decent human beings, framed in the context of board games. So it's really casual and very fun, but we talk about, just a lot of self-help and how we can just make the world a better place.
It is a very fun podcast. It is one of the few board game podcasts that I will consistently listen to.
Thank you.
And so highly recommend that. That will also be in the description. So thank you so very much for coming on, McKay. It has been so much fun talking with you and getting kind of to pick your brain about the Kickstarter journey and how stressful and exciting and wonderful that was for you. So thank you for sharing. Best of luck in the production and writing that big check to get Snack Time pushed. And I'm looking forward to what Backfire puts out in the future.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was great having you on, and we will talk to you all very soon. Cheers.
Cheers.